Imagine a world where a simple cup of coffee could cost you your life. A dark palace in Istanbul, whispers echoing through gilded halls, and a ruler so powerful that he saw the mere aroma of coffee as a threat to his kingdom. This wasn't a nightmare, it was reality in the Ottoman Empire. Sultan Murad IV, feared by all, declared death for anyone caught drinking or selling coffee. Streets emptied, cafes shuttered, and even the boldest merchants trembled at the thought of brewing the forbidden drink. Today you're about to step into a tale of power, obsession, and the deadly price of caffeine. Before we dive into this shocking story, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share your thoughts in the comments. Would you risk your life for a cup of coffee? Stay until the end, because this story will leave you questioning how far a ruler can go to control his people. The year was 1623. The Ottoman Empire was vast, stretching from the deserts of Arabia to the forests of the Balkans, a realm of astonishing wealth and unrivaled power. Yet within this sprawling empire, the streets of Istanbul were anything but peaceful. The city thrummed with life, merchants hawking spices, women in flowing robes chatting outside the fountains, and men with the latest gossip weaving through the crowds. But beneath this vibrancy, a shadow loomed. At the top of this empire sat Sultan Murad IV, a man whose name alone sent shivers down the spines of his subjects. Ascending to the throne as a boy of 11 after the death of his brother, Murad had witnessed betrayal, murder, and corruption from the highest ranks. By the time he was 16, he was no longer a timid prince, but a ruler who understood the brutal reality of power. Murad was obsessed with order, discipline, and control, and coffee, a seemingly innocent beverage, became the symbol of his authority. Coffee had traveled from Yemen and found its way into Istanbul's bustling streets. Cafes, known as kahve-khane, were not just places to drink coffee, they were spaces of conversation, debate, and rebellion. Intellectuals, poets, and political dissidents would gather in these cafes to challenge authority and share ideas. To Sultan Murad IV, this was unacceptable. He believed that coffee houses undermined his power by fostering sedition. Murad's advisors warned him that a ban might provoke unrest. Istanbul was a city addicted to coffee, and any harsh measures could spark revolt. But Murad, now a man of iron will, was determined. He would enforce the ban with such ferocity that no one would dare defy him. His decree was clear. Anyone caught drinking, selling, or even possessing coffee would face death. The city changed almost overnight. Merchants hid their beans, cafe owners shuttered their windows, and the once bustling coffee houses fell silent. Streets that had been filled with laughter now echoed with fear. Soldiers patrolled the lanes, and those suspected of defying the Sultan were dragged to the palace for interrogation. Public executions became a grim spectacle, serving as a chilling warning to the citizens. But Murad's obsession didn't stop at mere enforcement. He wanted to witness the punishment firsthand. He often disguised himself and walked among the common folk, watching for signs of rebellion or disobedience. One of his most notorious acts was personally executing coffee vendors in the streets, a terrifying display of his absolute power. The Sultan's presence alone was enough to stop any thought of defiance. Among the city's merchants, whispers of rebellion began to stir, though none dared act openly. One such merchant, Halim, had inherited his family's coffee business and had grown up in the bustling cafes of Istanbul. He knew the streets, the hidden corners, and the secret passageways where coffee was still brewed in defiance of the Sultan's orders. Halim's heart pounded every time he thought of risking his life. But the allure of coffee, the lifeblood of the city's culture, was too strong. One night, Halim met with a small group of loyal friends in a hidden basement beneath the Grand Bazaar. The room smelled of roasted coffee beans, a forbidden scent that made every heart race. They discussed plans to continue their trade in secret, to defy the Sultan's tyranny one cup at a time. Each man knew the consequences, a swift death if discovered. Yet the thrill of rebellion and the comfort of tradition bound them together. Meanwhile, Sultan Murad IV's paranoia grew. Rumors of secret coffee gatherings reached his ears, and he intensified his inspections. Soldiers disguised as merchants infiltrated the bazaars, and informants prowled the streets, reporting any hint of coffee-related activity. Murad's obsession with control had turned the entire city into his eyes and ears. The Sultan would stop at nothing to eliminate the threat. In the palace, Murad held council with his ministers. His voice was like thunder, his eyes piercing. "Coffee," he said, "is not just a beverage. It is rebellion. It is corruption. Those who dare drink it do so at the risk of their lives. No mercy shall be shown." Ministers nodded in fear, some trembling at the weight of his gaze. They knew the Sultan's temper and had seen friends executed for far lesser offenses. Back in the streets, Halim and his companions carried on, using clever disguises and secret routes to avoid detection. They brewed coffee in basements, served it in hidden rooms, and communicated through coded messages. Istanbul had become a city of secrets, where the rich aroma of coffee hid beneath layers of fear and vigilance. Every sip was an act of courage, a rebellion against the Sultan's oppressive rule. The tension escalated when one of Halim's friends, Yusuf, was caught by palace guards. Yusuf refused to reveal the locations of other secret cafes, and Murad, who insisted on making examples of those who defied him, executed Yusuf in a public square. His death was swift and terrifying, serving as a brutal reminder of the consequences. Yet rather than breaking Halim's resolve, it fueled his determination. He realized that the spirit of the people, though crushed, could not be extinguished. Stories of Murad's ruthlessness spread far beyond Istanbul. Travelers whispered of a sultan who executed men for the scent of coffee, of soldiers patrolling streets to enforce a beverage ban, and of secret gatherings where brave citizens risked everything for a cup. European merchants, hearing of the Sultan's harsh measures, marveled at the extremes of Ottoman authority, documenting the events in letters and reports that would travel across continents. Inside the palace, Murad's health began to decline. Years of absolute control and constant vigilance had taken their toll, yet even as his body weakened, his obsession with enforcing the coffee ban remained unyielding. He believed that discipline and fear were essential to maintaining his empire, and coffee was a challenge he could not tolerate. Meanwhile, Halim's underground network of coffee enthusiasts grew. They developed new methods to conceal their trade, moving beans in hidden compartments, brewing in small batches, and establishing secret signals to warn each other of patrols. The Sultan's control was absolute in the open, but in the shadows, resistance persisted. Coffee had become more than a drink. It was a symbol of freedom, resilience, and defiance. The clash between the Sultan and his citizens reached a critical point one winter night. Halim and his group had planned a clandestine gathering in a deserted courtyard near the Bosphorus. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the night air, carrying a scent of rebellion. Unbeknownst to them, palace guards, tipped off by an informant, had surrounded the area. What followed was a tense standoff, a moment where fear, courage, and the will to live collided. Murad IV's reign continued, marked by fear, strict control, and the ongoing struggle over a simple cup of coffee. The Sultan's legacy was etched in terror and discipline, while the people of Istanbul found ways to resist, to cherish the forbidden beverage in secret, and to assert their humanity under the shadow of absolute power. Hold on tight, because what happens next will shock you. The streets of Istanbul are about to erupt with tension, betrayal, and daring acts of defiance. Watch every moment as courage clashes with tyranny. Comment below. Would you risk everything for a forbidden cup of coffee? And don't forget to subscribe for the full story. Winter had tightened its grip on Istanbul, covering the city in a grey chill. The Bosphorus shimmered under the pale moonlight, reflecting the tension that coursed through the streets. In the shadows, Halim and his underground coffee network met once more, hearts pounding, hands trembling, not from the cold, but from fear. The Sultan's spies were everywhere, and any mistake could mean instant execution. Yet the air smelled of roasted coffee, a defiant whisper of life under oppression. Halim's mind raced as he reviewed their plan. They had learned from past close calls and devised intricate routes, secret codes, and decoys to avoid Murad's patrols. Each member of the network carried a heavy burden. The risk of death weighed on every sip, every meeting, every whispered conversation. Despite the danger, a stubborn fire of rebellion burned bright. That night, Halim and his group were delivering freshly roasted coffee beans to a hidden basement cafe near the Grand Bazaar. The narrow alleyways were eerily silent, punctuated only by the distant calls of guards. Their movements were synchronized, precise, almost ritualistic. Each step could decide the difference between life and death. As they approached the basement, an unexpected sound froze their hearts. Footsteps, heavy, methodical, approaching from both ends of the alley. Halim signaled for silence. The group pressed themselves against the walls, the cold stone biting through their thin robes. Moments later, two shadowy figures appeared, cloaked in black. Soldiers. Their eyes swept the alley, searching for any sign of movement. Halim held his breath. One wrong move, and it would be over. Time seemed to stretch into eternity. The soldiers passed, oblivious to the hidden rebels. Once the danger had passed, Halim exhaled, and they moved quickly to the basement, locking the heavy wooden door behind them. The air inside was warm, filled with the scent of coffee, an intoxicating mix of fear and defiance. Inside, the cafe was dimly lit by flickering oil lamps. The room was small but welcoming, with benches and low tables carved from aged wood. Patrons sat in hushed conversations, each aware of the risk. The aroma of coffee beans roasted to perfection mingled with the tension of living in constant fear. This was their sanctuary, their rebellion in liquid form. Halim addressed the group, his voice low but firm. "Tonight, we grow stronger. The Sultan believes fear controls us, but courage flows in every cup we serve. Remember, we are not just brewing coffee, we are keeping our spirit alive." The members nodded, steeling themselves. They understood the stakes, they understood the cost. Meanwhile, in the Topkapi Palace, Sultan Murad IV paced his private chambers. His gaze, sharp and unrelenting, scanned the city from the balcony. Reports of secret coffee gatherings had reached him once again. Murad's hands clenched into fists. "So they dare defy me," he muttered. "I will find them. Every last one." His reputation for ruthless enforcement was not mere legend. He had executed entire groups for far less, and he would not hesitate now. The Sultan summoned his elite guards, men trained not only in combat, but in espionage. These were no ordinary soldiers. They were shadows, blending into the streets, infiltrating homes, and rooting out dissent. Murad's orders were absolute. No coffee, no exceptions, no mercy. Back in the hidden cafe, Halim's group received an urgent warning from a messenger. One of their supply routes had been compromised. Murad's spies were moving closer, and a trap was being set. Panic threatened to break through the resolve of even the bravest members. But Halim, calm and determined, devised a new plan on the spot. They would move the remaining coffee beans to an even more secret location, a cellar beneath an abandoned mosque on the city's outskirts. As they prepared to leave, the sound of approaching soldiers reached their ears again. Heartbeats accelerated, hands gripped hidden daggers, and eyes darted to every shadow. The group moved in unison, silently slipping through hidden passages, avoiding the streets entirely. Each step was a gamble, each breath could be their last. The journey to the abandoned mosque was perilous. They navigated narrow alleys, leaping over obstacles, crawling through debris, and whispering silent prayers. Murad's patrols had grown bolder, more aggressive, sensing the presence of rebels. Yet Halim's knowledge of Istanbul's labyrinthine streets gave them an edge. Every twist and turn, every hidden corner, was a calculated move in this deadly game. Finally, they reached the mosque. Its once grand structure had fallen into decay, but the cellar below remained intact, a perfect refuge. The coffee beans were carefully stored, each sack hidden behind false walls and beneath loose stones. The group could breathe again for now. They had survived another night, but the threat of discovery loomed ever larger. Word of their daring moves spread quietly through the underground network. Other secret cafes began to flourish, inspired by Halim's courage. The Sultan's grip, though ironclad on the surface, faced resistance in the shadows. Coffee had become more than a beverage. It was a symbol of rebellion, resilience, and hope. However, Murad IV was relentless. Frustrated by the continued defiance, he intensified his personal involvement. Disguising himself as a commoner, he prowled the streets at night, listening, observing, and interrogating anyone who looked suspicious. Stories of the Sultan's presence among the people grew into a chilling legend. No one knew where he would strike next, and that uncertainty spread fear like wildfire. Halim, aware of Murad's tactics, knew that the network could not remain static. They needed a bold plan to ensure survival and continued defiance. He proposed splitting the group into smaller cells, each responsible for a segment of the city. This way, even if one cell was discovered, the others could continue their work. It was risky, but the alternative, doing nothing, was certain death. The new plan was set in motion. Each cell established secret supply lines, coded messages, and hidden safe houses. The coffee trade persisted under the radar, defying Murad's authority. The people of Istanbul, though fearful, began to see the cracks in the Sultan's control. The forbidden aroma of coffee wafted through the city, a silent act of defiance reaching every street corner. As months passed, tension escalated. The Sultan's wrath grew with each report of continued coffee activity. He ordered mass searches, interrogations, and executions, hoping to crush the underground movement. Yet each act of cruelty only strengthened the resolve of the rebels. They were no longer just fighting for coffee. They were fighting for dignity, freedom, and identity. One fateful night, a cell was discovered. Soldiers stormed their secret meeting place, capturing many members. Halim, sensing the danger, narrowly escaped through a hidden passage. He fled to the outskirts of Istanbul, exhausted but alive. His mind raced with strategies to protect the remaining network and continue the fight. Murad IV, furious at the escape, doubled the rewards for informants and increased patrols. The city had become a chessboard, with each move watched, countered, and anticipated. Halim and his allies adapted, using the Sultan's own paranoia against him. Misdirection, secret rendezvous, and coded signals became their weapons. Through daring ingenuity, courage, and unwavering resolve, Halim's network survived. They maintained the flow of coffee, keeping the spirit of the city alive under the Sultan's oppressive reign. The story of forbidden coffee became legend, a tale of rebellion, ingenuity, and the human desire for freedom. In the end, Sultan Murad IV's obsession with control could not completely erase the culture of coffee from Istanbul. The beverage endured, hidden in basements and secret cellars, a symbol of resistance that outlived fear. And Halim, the daring merchant who risked everything for a cup of coffee, became a hero of a quiet revolution, remembered not for defiance alone, but for inspiring a city to reclaim its spirit. Brace yourself. What happens next will leave you on the edge of your seat. Betrayal, daring escapes, and secrets of the Ottoman underworld are about to unfold. Watch every second, because the consequences are deadly. Comment below. How far would you go for freedom? And hit subscribe for the full saga. Spring arrived in Istanbul, bringing the first warmth after a harsh winter. The city's markets buzzed with cautious life, yet an invisible tension lingered in every corner. Sultan Murad IV's iron grip remained, but whispers of defiance grew louder. The underground coffee network had survived countless raids, yet the price of rebellion weighed heavily on Halim and his allies. Halim knew that their survival depended not only on stealth but on strategy. The Sultan's spies had learned from past encounters, growing more cunning with each operation. Now the stakes were higher than ever. Every delivery, every hidden cafe, and every clandestine meeting carried the shadow of death. The group's resilience was tested daily, yet their commitment to preserving Istanbul's culture and freedom of thought never wavered. One evening, Halim convened a secret council beneath the crumbling arches of an abandoned caravanserai. Members of the network gathered silently, their faces lit by dim lanterns. Maps of the city were spread across a wooden table, routes marked in meticulous detail. Halim addressed the group. "The Sultan believes fear controls us, but tonight we take control. We will strike where he least expects, proving that courage can never be crushed by tyranny. Plans were made to expand the network further into the city, using hidden passageways, secret symbols, and coded messages to coordinate actions across multiple districts. Each cell of the organization operated independently, yet in perfect synchrony with the others. The risk was immense, but so was the reward, the survival of their culture, their traditions, and their defiance against the Sultan's oppressive rule. Meanwhile, Sultan Murad IV remained consumed by obsession. Reports of continued coffee activity reached him daily, and each failure to eradicate it fueled his fury. He began taking even more drastic measures, deploying elite soldiers, interrogating entire neighborhoods, and employing spies disguised as ordinary citizens. Murad's paranoia became legendary. No alley, no house, no cellar was safe from his watchful eyes. In the midst of this tense environment, Halim's network executed a bold plan to smuggle large quantities of coffee beans from distant provinces. They recruited trusted merchants, disguised as grain and spice traders, to carry the precious cargo into the city. Each shipment required perfect timing, flawless coordination, and nerves of steel. One misstep would lead to certain execution. The day of the operation arrived. Halim's team moved silently through the crowded streets, blending in with merchants and townsfolk. The aroma of coffee was hidden beneath sacks of grains, spices, and textiles. Each step carried the weight of life and death. As they neared the final safe house, a patrol of soldiers appeared unexpectedly. Halim froze, signaling for the team to halt. The patrol passed mere feet away, unaware of the precious contraband in the shadows. Relief washed over the group, but only briefly. They knew danger lurked everywhere. Inside the safe house, preparations began for brewing the coffee. The basement was filled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Every sip, every cup served was an act of defiance. Patrons whispered quietly, knowing that their presence could cost them their lives. The coffeehouses had become sanctuaries of rebellion, where courage and camaraderie outshone fear. Yet, Sultan Murad IV would not be outwitted. Using a network of informants, he discovered the approximate locations of these hidden cafes. Late one night, he personally led a covert raid on a suspected meeting place. The soldiers stormed the basement, catching some rebels by surprise. Chaos erupted, tables overturned, lamps shattered, and the scent of coffee mingled with panic. Some managed to escape through secret tunnels. Others were captured, facing execution at dawn. Halim narrowly avoided capture, fleeing through Istanbul's winding streets into the outskirts of the city. His mind raced, seeking ways to regroup and continue the resistance. He realized that to survive, they needed to spread their operations even further, decentralizing their activities to prevent the Sultan from striking them all at once. The months that followed were a test of endurance, intelligence, and bravery. Halim and his allies refined their operations, establishing new cells and hidden supply routes. They developed coded language, secret hand signals, and ingenious methods to smuggle beans and brew coffee without detection. Each successful operation strengthened the morale of the network, while Murad's increasingly desperate measures only heightened the tension. The underground cafes became legendary. Word spread discreetly throughout Istanbul, attracting poets, scholars, and ordinary citizens alike. These establishments were not merely places to drink coffee, they were hubs of intellectual exchange, rebellion, and hope. The aroma of coffee carried messages of resilience, courage, and defiance, reaching every alley and courtyard of the city. One fateful night, Halim received intelligence that the Sultan planned a massive sweep of the city, targeting known coffeehouses and suspected sympathizers. The network quickly devised a plan to counter it. Smaller, more mobile cells would scatter, while decoy locations would mislead the Sultan's forces. Timing, secrecy, and precision were essential. As Murad's soldiers approached, Halim's team executed their plan flawlessly. Decoy cafes were abandoned, empty and lifeless, while the real operations continued undetected. The Sultan's forces found nothing but silence and shadows, unaware that rebellion had simply shifted underground. This victory, though small, emboldened the network and reinforced the belief that the Sultan could not control the spirit of the people through fear alone. Halim, exhausted yet resolute, reflected on their journey. The struggle had tested them in every conceivable way: fear, betrayal, danger, and loss. Yet it had also forged bonds of loyalty, courage, and ingenuity. Coffee had become more than a beverage. It was a symbol of survival, rebellion, and identity. Sultan Murad IV's reign continued, marked by paranoia, brutality, and obsession. Yet the underground network thrived, preserving Istanbul's culture and freedom of thought against all odds. The forbidden aroma of coffee flowed through the city's streets, an invisible, unbreakable thread connecting the rebels and the citizens who dared defy tyranny. Halim's legend spread quietly, inspiring future generations. He became a symbol of resistance, courage, and ingenuity, the man who risked everything for a cup of coffee, who challenged one of history's most feared rulers, and who proved that the human spirit could not be completely crushed, even under the shadow of absolute power. Get ready for the most intense chapter yet. Betrayal, courage, and life-or-death gambles will push Istanbul to the edge. Don't blink. Every moment counts. Comment below. What would you risk to defy a tyrant? And make sure to subscribe, because this saga reaches a shocking climax. The heat of summer blanketed Istanbul, yet the city simmered with more than just warmth. Beneath the sunlit streets and bustling markets, an invisible war continued. A war of courage, secrecy, and survival. Halim's underground coffee network had grown, yet Sultan Murad IV's obsession with control had intensified. Every move the rebels made was watched, and every action carried the weight of death. Halim convened a council in a hidden chamber beneath the ruins of a once grand palace. Maps of the city were spread across a table, routes and safe houses marked with painstaking detail. "The Sultan grows desperate," Halim said, his voice steady but intense. "He underestimates our resilience. We must strike decisively, expand our operations, and protect the lives of those who risk everything for this cause." The council's plan was bold. Divide the network into smaller mobile cells, capable of acting independently, yet coordinated through a system of coded messages and secret signals. Each cell would maintain a supply of coffee and provide safe havens for citizens who sought the forbidden drink. The risk was monumental, but inaction was a certain death sentence for both the culture and the rebellion. Meanwhile, Sultan Murad IV paced his private chambers in Topkapi Palace, consumed by paranoia. Every report of coffee activity enraged him. His soldiers scoured the streets, interrogated entire neighborhoods, and executed suspected dissidents. Murad's obsession had reached a fever pitch. He could not tolerate even the faintest scent of defiance. One night, Halim received intelligence from a trusted informant. Murad had deployed an elite squad of spies to infiltrate the underground cafes. Panic could have overtaken the group, but Halim's calm leadership steadied their nerves. "We anticipate them," he said. "We will not be caught unprepared." Plans were immediately revised. Decoy locations were established, and the real operations moved to safer, more secretive areas. The operation was fraught with peril. Halim's team moved through Istanbul's narrow alleys and hidden tunnels, each step measured, each glance cautious. Soldiers patrolled unpredictably, and any slip could mean execution. Yet the rebels persisted, motivated by the belief that coffee represented more than a beverage. It was a symbol of freedom, courage, and resistance. During one daring mission, Halim personally escorted a shipment of coffee beans through the most dangerous part of the city. The market was crowded, filled with merchants, citizens, and unsuspecting travelers. Using clever disguises and secret compartments, the beans were transported undetected. Every heartbeat was a countdown, every shadow a potential threat. Yet the mission succeeded, reinforcing the network's confidence and demonstrating the limits of the Sultan's control. As the underground network thrived, the social fabric of Istanbul subtly shifted. Citizens who once feared Murad's tyranny began to quietly support the rebels. Poems, songs, and stories circulated, celebrating the courage of those who defied the Sultan. Coffee houses became hubs not only of rebellion, but also of culture and community, preserving knowledge, ideas, and traditions under the constant threat of violence. Murad, increasingly frustrated, launched a series of sweeping raids across the city. One summer night, his forces stormed a suspected cafe, capturing several rebels. Chaos erupted, lamps shattered, tables overturned, and the aroma of roasted coffee mingled with fear and panic. Halim narrowly escaped through a secret passage, his heart pounding with both relief and sorrow for those captured. In response, Halim devised an even more audacious strategy. The network would expand beyond the city's limits, smuggling coffee from distant provinces and establishing hidden outposts in surrounding villages. Each outpost acted as both a supply center and a sanctuary for rebels. Communication between cells was coordinated through a system of coded lanterns, secret couriers, and discrete symbols etched into walls. The rebellion had become a city-wide and eventually region-wide movement, invisible to the Sultan, but deeply felt by its citizens. Tension reached a breaking point when Murad personally led a nighttime raid, disguised as a commoner, in an attempt to infiltrate the network. His soldiers moved silently, searching houses and alleys, interrogating citizens, and executing those suspected of rebellion. Halim, aware of the Sultan's presence, orchestrated diversions. Decoy cafes were abandoned, false trails laid, and hidden couriers misdirected the Sultan's spies. Murad's forces found only silence and shadows, unable to grasp the true scale of the underground network. Months of careful strategy, ingenuity, and bravery culminated in a pivotal confrontation. Halim coordinated a city-wide meeting of all cells in a secure location. The room was filled with dozens of rebels, their eyes reflecting determination, fear, and hope. Halim addressed the assembly. "The Sultan believes he can crush us with fear, but courage cannot be extinguished by tyranny. Our fight is not only for coffee, it is for our freedom, our culture, and our humanity." This meeting marked the beginning of a decisive phase. The network began distributing coffee more widely, reaching previously untouched neighborhoods and even distant provinces. Citizens, inspired by the rebels' bravery, contributed to the cause, providing shelter, intelligence, and supplies. Istanbul had transformed into a city where quiet defiance pulsed through every alleyway, courtyard, and basement. Murad IV's desperation became his weakness. Reports of the network's expanding influence, coupled with repeated failures to locate the rebels, eroded his authority. His paranoia deepened, making him increasingly erratic. Soldiers were executed for perceived incompetence, and the city became a tinderbox of fear and suspicion. Yet the rebellion endured, growing stronger with each attempt to suppress it. The climax of this struggle was a daring raid orchestrated by Halim's most trusted operatives. They targeted a key supply route heavily guarded by the Sultan's elite soldiers. Using decoys, misdirection, and sheer audacity, the rebels seized control of the route, securing valuable coffee supplies for the network. This operation not only ensured the survival of the underground cafes, but also demonstrated the effectiveness and resilience of coordinated rebellion against tyranny. In the aftermath, Istanbul's citizens began to recognize the power of collective courage. The underground coffee network had not only preserved a beloved cultural practice, but also fostered a sense of agency and defiance among the people. Coffee, once a symbol of rebellion, became a symbol of hope, freedom, and the enduring human spirit. Halim's leadership, vision, and bravery solidified his place in history as a hero of clandestine resistance. His network had faced extreme danger, betrayal, and the constant threat of death, yet emerged triumphant. The Sultan's obsession with control could not extinguish the resilience, ingenuity, and courage of those determined to preserve their culture and identity. Ultimately, the legacy of the underground coffee network endured. Murad IV's reign remained marked by fear and brutality, but the city of Istanbul had learned a powerful lesson. Tyranny may dominate the surface, but the spirit of resistance can thrive in shadows. Coffee flowed quietly through hidden alleys and secret cellars, carrying with it the unbroken courage of a people who refused to surrender to fear. Halim's story became legend, not simply as a tale of rebellion, but as a testament to the strength, resilience, and ingenuity of the human spirit. In the annals of Istanbul, his name was whispered with respect, reverence, and awe, reminding generations that courage can survive even the most ruthless of rulers. The final chapter is here, and it will shock you. Secrets revealed, daring escapes, and the ultimate clash of courage against tyranny await. Watch every moment, because history itself hangs in the balance. Comment below, what would you risk to defy absolute power? And hit subscribe to witness the epic conclusion. Autumn descended on Istanbul, casting golden light across the city's ancient streets. Yet beneath this calm exterior, the city trembled with tension. Sultan Murad IV's obsession had escalated to a fever pitch. Every alley, every basement, every secret cafe was scrutinized. The underground coffee network, led by Halim, had expanded across the city, but the Sultan was determined to end this rebellion once and for all. Halim convened a council in the largest safe house they had yet secured, deep beneath the ruins of a deserted palace wing. Dozens of trusted operatives gathered, each face marked with determination and fatigue. "Tonight," Halim began, "we face our greatest challenge. Murad will strike with everything at his command. Our mission is not just survival, it is to preserve our culture, our freedom, and the spirit of Istanbul itself." The network divided into smaller, highly mobile units, each responsible for critical tasks, protecting the secret coffee supplies, maintaining communication lines, and organizing citizens to provide shelter and aid. The rebels moved like shadows through the city, blending into crowds, slipping through alleys, and vanishing through hidden passages. Every operation was a high-stakes gamble, with the Sultan's elite forces close behind. Meanwhile, Sultan Murad IV, consumed by paranoia, personally led night raids. Disguised as a commoner, he infiltrated neighborhoods, interrogating citizens and punishing any hint of rebellion. His reputation for brutality was unmatched, and the mere mention of his name struck fear into the hearts of Istanbul's residents. Yet even as he intensified his control, the underground network adapted and evolved, turning the Sultan's obsession into a vulnerability. Halim knew that the key to survival was deception. He orchestrated multiple diversionary operations, decoy cafes, false messages, and simulated supply runs to mislead the Sultan's forces. These tactics were executed flawlessly, with precision and daring that inspired even the most cautious members of the network. The city became a labyrinth of truth and illusion, where courage and intelligence outmatched brute force. One critical night, intelligence reached Halim that Murad planned a massive, coordinated sweep across the city to destroy the network entirely. This was the moment the rebels had prepared for. Using secret signals and coded lanterns, each cell mobilized simultaneously. Safe houses were reinforced, decoy locations activated, and hidden couriers moved undetected. The operation required perfect timing and unwavering resolve. The Sultan's soldiers descended upon the city like a storm. Streets were patrolled relentlessly, homes searched, and citizens questioned under threat of execution. Chaos erupted in the neighborhoods, with the scent of fear mingling with the lingering aroma of coffee. Yet the rebels had anticipated every move. Halim himself led a daring mission to relocate the largest remaining coffee supply, moving it under the cover of night through tunnels known only to a select few. At the same time, smaller cells carried out diversionary strikes, drawing soldiers away from critical locations. Decoy cafes were discovered, but by the time the Sultan's forces arrived, the real operations were already hidden. Halim's network moved with silent precision, demonstrating the power of strategy, intelligence, and unity against tyranny. The climax approached when the Sultan, frustrated by repeated failures, personally attempted to storm the largest safe house. Halim had foreseen this and set a series of traps and misdirections. Soldiers found empty rooms, false tunnels, and misleading messages, all designed to confuse and frustrate the Sultan. Every attempt Murad made to locate the network ended in failure, further eroding his authority and morale. As dawn broke over Istanbul, Halim gathered his operatives to assess the success of the night's missions. The city had survived another attack. The coffee supplies were secure, and the network remained intact. Citizens quietly celebrated in whispers and secret gatherings, grateful for the bravery and ingenuity of those who risked everything to preserve their culture. Coffee, once a forbidden drink, had become a symbol of resilience and freedom. Murad IV's obsession had driven him to extremes, but he could not extinguish the spirit of the people. The underground network's clever strategies, courage, and unity had turned fear into a weapon against the tyrant. Halim, though weary, knew that their victory was not just for coffee, it was for the soul of Istanbul itself. In the aftermath, the city's social and cultural fabric subtly transformed. Citizens, inspired by the rebels' courage, continued to support the network discreetly. Poetry, music, and storytelling celebrated the defiance of ordinary people against absolute power. The underground coffee network had preserved not only a beloved cultural practice, but also a sense of agency and pride among Istanbul's citizens. Halim's leadership became legendary. Stories of his daring, ingenuity, and steadfast courage spread quietly, passed down from one generation to the next. He was remembered not only as a rebel, but as a guardian of culture, a strategist who understood that courage, unity, and intelligence could outmatch even the most brutal tyranny. Sultan Murad IV, consumed by paranoia and frustration, eventually faced the limits of his control. Despite his fearsome reputation, he could not destroy a network that had become the heartbeat of the city's resistance. Coffee, the once forbidden drink, flowed quietly through hidden cellars, secret alleys, and clandestine cafes, carrying with it the unbroken courage of Istanbul's people. The final chapter of this saga left a lasting legacy. Halim and his network demonstrated that oppression, no matter how absolute, could never fully conquer the human spirit. Coffee, rebellion, and culture had survived the Sultan's tyranny, becoming symbols of hope, resilience, and freedom. In history, the story of Halim and Istanbul's underground coffee network became a legend of courage against tyranny. The people had learned that even in the darkest times, unity, intelligence, and bravery could prevail. And though Sultan Murad IV's reign was remembered for fear and brutality, the indomitable spirit of the city's citizens endured, whispered through generations, immortalized in the aroma of coffee and the tales of defiance that inspired a nation.